An idea that I had an ulcer problem. So I had a vet come from Columbia City, Indiana, come to my barn and scope every gelding, all 6 geldings. My results were all 6 geldings had ulcers, 3 of them had bleeding ulcers. Okay? I started on Cool Gut, I fed it for 8 weeks. I went to 2 shows. They stood like angels. They ate better. They were quieter in their stalls. I got home, called that vet again. I said, hey, I want you to scope these guys again. He said, what'd you do? I said, well, I just fed him something. He scoped them. Not a single gelding had an ulcer. So as DAC, I can't say it cures ulcers, but from my experience, pretty obvious.
I'd like to say too, from my experience,
Yeah. And before I worked for DAC, I used to sell drugs for a big veterinary, nationwide veterinary company. If you have ulcers in a horse, what does the vet want to sell you? Ulcer guard or something like that. The way that works is it eliminates the stomach acid. Well, of course, there's no problem with it splashing, but a horse needs that acid. So you're on ulcer guard for 30 days. Yes, the ulcer goes away. As soon as you're off it, the acid comes back, creates another ulcer. Now you're on ulcer guard again. Why is that not surprising from the veterinary world or the medical world? They want to keep you buying that product. Okay. The next product you would probably be very interested in is called Pre-Buff. If this would have been out when I was showing horses, I would have bought it also. It is a liquid. You drop a 30 cc syringe and squirt it in the horse's mouth. Instantly, as soon as that hits their stomach acid is neutral. And it lasts for 4 to 6 hours. So if you're at a show, you can hit them with that, and for 4 to 6 hours, their stomach acid is neutral. What makes their stomach acid build up to dangerous levels? Not having hay in front of them. If a horse is without hay for an hour only, their acid reaches dangerous levels. Okay? So I did 2 things with my hitch. I kept hay in front of them almost 24 hours a day, and I fed Cool Gut, and had no more ulcer problems. Now we get into joint supplements and hoof supplements. And the first one is called Foundation Formula. And I'm going to tell you a funny story about that. I'm always kind of a skeptic. If you tell me feed this to your horse and it'll do this, I'm always like, well, how does it work? Tell me why it works. I don't usually believe it because sometimes when someone gives you a product, it's hard to tell if it's working. So I asked Dr. Dern one night, we were out to dinner, and he's a very, very smart man, obviously. And I said, this is probably a dumb question. And he goes, no, there's no dumb question. And I'm thinking, yeah, he probably thinks I'm an idiot. But I said, for example, Foundation Formula, that first product, that's made for horses' feet. How can you tell me that by putting it in a horse's mouth that it's going to get to their feet? I said, I'm a little bit of a skeptic. And he said, no, that's not a dumb question at all. He said, think of it this way. Your horse's mouth is the entrance to an interstate. And he said, just like an interstate, you can take ramps and go wherever you want. We could go anywhere we want in the country just by jumping on the interstate out here. He said, remember I'm the world leader in chelation? And I said, yes. He said, once if I told you I can chelate a product to direct it to go where I want it to go. I said, can you? And he said, yes. I said, that's cool. And I said, so at what point of accuracy can you do that? He said, I would say about as accurate as a GPS. Now, Foundation Formula is a little different product than all my other products. All my other products that I told you about, you should notice a difference in your horse with that particular issue within 30 days. If you don't, call me or call the dealer. We might have the wrong product for you. Foundation Formula, why can't I tell you that you'll see a difference in 30 days? How long does it take a horse to grow a complete new hoof? About 14 months. Okay? I will tell you that if you've got a horse with foot problems, you start feeding this, you will see exactly when it kicks in. Okay? Works very good. Next product is Yucca. I've got a bag of it right here. Yucca is a natural anti-inflammatory. Okay? What do we take for anti-inflammatory? Ibuprofen, right? Okay? There's anti-inflammatories for horses too. Bute and Banamine. What's the problem with giving a horse those? You can only give it for so long because it starts affecting their liver and their stomach. Yucca, they can eat every day. It's a natural plant. Okay? What I have found in my time with horses, my 50-some years with horses, is a lot of horses have joint issues or soreness, and a lot of times that soreness is exacerbated and made bigger simply from inflammation. For example, I'm an arthritis patient. If my knees or my neck swell up, they hurt more. If the inflammation goes down, it doesn't hurt as much. It's simple physics. If we lower the pressure on that joint, it's not going to hurt as much. So yucca is a cool product. You can feed a scoop a day to a horse. You could give a horse 10 scoops a day. You cannot overdose on my yucca. So it's a great way to help out that horse that's in some pain in a very safe and economic way. Okay. Next two products are LQHA and Optimum Flex Plus. Now remember, I have that mineral product, Total Performance Plus, that has a little bit of Optimum Flex Plus in it. Okay. The LQHA is made for young horses. Has anybody in here ever started working like a 2-year-old horse and noticed all of a sudden in about a month in, their knees start puffing up and they can't handle it? What that is from is a horse produces hyaluronic acid for their joint. A horse only produces so much. If we work them too hard, their hyaluronic acid can't keep up. This is made as a liquid. You can simply feed it to a horse and it'll put hyaluronic acid in their body. Okay? So making up for the hyaluronic acid that they're not producing. The next one, Optimum Flex Plus, that's for that arthritic horse. Okay? Now you can have arthritic horses from any age. I had 4-year-olds that had arthritis. It just depends on what they did. You know, if they came off the track, or a horse that runs barrels a lot, or who knows, a lot of these horses come from rescues. You don't know their past life. If they didn't have proper minerals their whole life, and they were even used mildly, they can develop arthritis. Optimum Flex Plus does a very good job at alleviating the pain for their arthritis. Can you eliminate their arthritis? No, you cannot cure arthritis, but you can make them a lot more comfortable. Okay? Where's my clicker? Now we have special needs products like Herbal Response. That's a painkiller. That is not an anti-inflammatory. Okay? If you're going to use a horse for a show or a race where they'll be tested, you cannot use this product because the pain-killing ingredient in it is double star. Even though it's not a drug, it'll flag in a blood test for a drug. You also cannot give this to horses that are carrying a foal. Okay? The next product is vitamin E and SE. That's vitamin E and selenium. Okay? Vitamin E is very, very crucial to a horse. It affects everything from their nervous system to their thought process to their coordination. You can do a blood test and find out how low your horse is on vitamin E. I guarantee you all horses that are low on vitamin E, some of them are just affected a lot more than others. It's kind of like very few of us drink enough water. Some of us can get by with it better than others. Some of us end up with kidney stones or dehydration very easy. Okay? Vitamin E, I'll tell you a couple simple ways you can check your horse to see if they're too low. If you take your fingers and put them on your horse's withers and press down kind of hard and run your fingers down their back, what do? They arch, right? If you ever get one that really arches real far and starts dancing with their hind feet, they're low on vitamin E. If you grab a horse's head like this and their butt's that way, and you walk into their head and turn them really sharp, if they stumble with their front feet, they're low on vitamin E. If you pinch their skin and pull it out, just like us with dehydration, if it stays out, they're very low on vitamin E. If you feed one of our minerals and use our oil, that's probably enough vitamin E for any horse. However, some horses need a little bit more. Okay. We also have a lot of selenium in our mineral package. Next one is metabolic. What is a metabolic horse? Anybody have an idea? It's got hair issues. It's got weight issues. It's basically an overweight horse, and they become diabetic. They can no longer regulate their sugars, and they become very lethargic. Okay? They're no different than people. If all of us here decided we're all going to try to get on that show 500 pound plus, and we all reach 500 pounds, what's the one thing we'd have in common other than being fat? We'd all be diabetic. Okay? The reality in this country is if you get heavy enough and you live long enough, you will be diabetic. Horses are kind of that way too. Where I see it a lot is, for example, a guy's daughter has barrel horses all through high school. She's feeding these things like race horses, and she's barrel horsing. She goes off to college. Dad ends up with horses. What does dumb dad do? He keeps feeding these things like they're barrel horses. That's how they become metabolic. This helps them regulate that a little bit better. Calming agents. We have two calming agents. We have one that's called Formula Calm B. We sell a ton of this in the quarter horse show industry. I don't like the name Calm B because when I say calm, it's like you think that they're going to lose motion or lose athleticism. To me, it's more of a focused product. If you give a tube of this in paste form 30 minutes before you go in the ring, they will just focus much, much better. Listen to you a little bit better. Okay?
So I've given the pace before and I noticed a big difference.
Yeah.
Would you rather between the pace and the pellet, do you think the pellet is enough for them, or would you go for the pace?
I never fed it as a powder. I only used the paste just because I didn't care at home, and I knew that when I went to an event, I wanted it to react the best I could. And to me, if a horse has something every day, they almost get used to it. So you take that horse to an event 30 minutes before you give him the paste. I'd buy a case of paste before I'd feed the powder every day.
Because I noticed a big difference in the horse with
Yeah.
the pace. And I was thinking, well, he's good at home, but I've been back and forth on it.
Yeah. It's more economical for you to use the paste.
Thank you.
Yeah. The next one is mare relief. Does anybody in here show or use a mare for anything?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the one thing we know about mares is their cycle goes like this. Okay?
They're fun.
I always said I would never show a mare in my hit until one year I had a mare that was way better than any of the geldings. So I thought, I'm going to use her. The first show we went to, she went into heat. And I mean, she was a miserable rip to get along with. Okay? So, what are my options? I can give her a shot from a vet every week. Okay? Very expensive. And again, it's another drug you're pumping into them. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. The other thing we could do is I could put a marble in her uterus. And a lot of mares, if you put a glass marble in their uterus, they think they're in full. But this rip was so high strung, I thought she'd sneeze and shoot that marble right out. So I didn't put a marble in her. I got some mare relief, and within 30 days, if she went back into heat, you could tell she was in heat, But as soon as I put a bridle on her to harness her, she was all business. Okay? Never acted like a mare in heat when I showed her. Obviously, you don't want to give this to a mare that you're breeding. But it works very good at just leveling out that mood of the mare.
Don't forget, and you can enter a raffle to win the scooter.
Next product is
Come over to the
Electroade.
FCHA table.
The one thing I'll tell you about Electroade, and it's no different than my son that's a power lifter and a mixed martial arts fighter, he'll tell you Electroade does you no good unless it's sugar-free. This is a sugar-free Electroade. Okay? What it does is it helps horses drink more. It helps them utilize that water that they're getting even better. One thing I'll tell you is I'll guarantee you most likely your horses do not drink enough water just like we don't. And I was kind of a little bit of a Hitler about it at my farm. My boys growing up, they realized that I was kind of a picky bugger because every week they had to wash out my water tank, clean them out with a brush and vinegar, and refill them. At my house, if you wouldn't take a cup and scoop it in the water tank and drink it, then the water wasn't clean enough for them. Okay? So I fed Electroade, and I also kept loose salt in their feeders. Loose salt is cheap. Okay, you can buy it at any feed store. It's very cheap. They will only eat what they need. Okay? I had 58-inch draft pony mares and geldings that were, this tall. Okay? You know those blue barrels that you get and you cut them in half and use them as tanks? Each one of them had one in their stalls, and with this electroated salt, I could get them to drink a blue barrel every 2 days. Okay? Why is that important? Because we're pushing their muscles. Just like us, if we're dehydrated and you go do a sport, you're going to get injured. Okay? Horses are the same way. Okay? The next one is E Natural. That is our pure vitamin E product. You can buy that in as little as a pound. The scoop is about the size of your pinky fingernail. It doesn't take much. That does not have the selenium in it. That's the one I used a lot with my hitch geldings.